This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, we now bring you a discussion on India-China disengagement in eastern Ladakh. The participants are Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, defense expert, and Ajay Banerjee, journalist.
Good evening. We have General Kulkarni with us tonight, and General Kulkarni, we will be talking about the recent developments along the line of actual control with China in eastern Ladakh. The Raksha Mantri yesterday in Parliament made a very balanced statement saying that the withdrawal will be in phases. The first phase will be about withdrawing from North Bank and South Bank of the Pangong Tso Lake in eastern Ladakh. The remaining phases will be done within 48 hours, or discussions will start within 48 hours of the first phase. And he also spoke about how the withdrawal will be verified on ground before we move further. General Kulkarni, how do you see the development?
A cautious optimism, but a welcome step, because for the last about 10 months, the tension has been quite high, and hopefully China should walk the talk. If China does not walk the talk, then all along what we've been saying, that we cannot trust China, it would be proved. So it is a welcome step, and I would see that the tensions which were there along the LAC, it would help minimize, and I was glad to see that at least the armor elements have started pulling back, and that's the first step that the Chinese have done, and simultaneously we have also done. So it's kind of getting into your own positions by both the sides simultaneously. So that's a very good step that we have done. However, as I said again, a cautious optimism, and in phase one, as what the Raksha Mantri said, that it would be for the Pangong Tso area, that is both North and South Pangong Tso, and primarily the North Pangong Tso, where he insisted that finger 4 and finger 8, that is the area, and the areas that he mentioned was Dancing Thapa. That's where the post office of ours is. And he said east of finger 8, it's Disengagement 2, 1 or Konak 4, doesn't matter as long as it's east. And therefore, I think it was very nicely think, very well said, very well agreed upon. The disengagement does not concede any area of ours, and we are actually emphasizing again and again on the fact that what we said, our perception, the LAC is a perception. Our claim lines and our area is far beyond. But as of now, the LAC runs along finger 8 for us.
To explain to the listeners what the fingers mean, the fingers are actually spurs of the mountain which end at the north bank of the Pangong Tso. The Pangong Tso is a 135-kilometer wide glacial mud lake. General Kulkarni, I will take you northwards towards Gogra Hot Springs in Depsang. How do you see the developments in Depsang? How crucial will the demilitarization of Depsang mean for us? Because Depsang, anything happening in Depsang can hamper the DSDBO road, the DBO airfield, and also some parts of Siachen. How do you see that, sir?
I think what you said actually hit the nail on the head. In phase one, what the Raksha Mantri spoke about was the Pangong Tso, after which every step will be verified, and after the verification and the disengagement that would have taken place at Pangong Tso, within 48 hours, the other friction points, like you rightly said, Otting, Goga, and the Depsang would be undertaken. Now, as regards the Depsang that you're specifically asking about is, Depsang is an old disputed area where the Chinese were hindering with a patrolling flight. Now, what happened first? Earlier, it happened in 2002, and subsequently it happened in 2013, where there was a 20-day face-off, and then the erstwhile Prime Minister underwent, he did sign a treaty, what is called the Border Defense Cooperation Agreement 2013, and in which it was very clearly stated in Article 6 and Article 8 that firstly, the Article 6 which said no tailing of patrol. That means the patrols will not be tailed. Article 8 said a self-restraint will be imposed. This was with a view to have peace and tranquility. You're absolutely right. Depsang still continues to be a thing which would have to be discussed in detail. However, in phase 1, Pangong Tso, and subsequent phases will be Depsang, where what the Chinese are doing are hindering up patrolling to patrol point 10, 11, 11A, 12, 13. So hopefully that should also get resolved.
To explain to the listeners, these patrolling points numbers are actually the routes decided by the China Study Group on where the patrol parties will go. These are pre-decided routes. General Kulkarni, when we talk about Ladakh, the LAC in eastern Ladakh, it starts at the east of the Karakoram Pass and ends with Dame Chowk in southeastern Ladakh. Sir, how do you see there are disputed areas, demarcated disputed areas in northern part and southern part? Are these intrusions or are these face-offs, to correct myself, these face-offs which have happened in eastern Ladakh now, are they in any manner China's attempt to unilaterally change the alignment of the LAC, which is anyway undemarcated?
See, it is primarily because of that. The whole thing is the It started off, China was never a neighbor. It was Tibet that was our neighbor. And from 1950, after the People's Republic of China, Mao Zedong, that they decided they have captured Tibet, they have captured Xinjiang province, and thereafter now China has become our neighbor. It is when they became our neighbor, it was their perception. They thought they were center of the universe and they could do what they were wanting to do. And slowly and steadily did capture in 1962 and earlier also slowly and steadily until by 1962 we'd already lost what even the Raksha Mantri has accepted it to say that we lost 38,000 square kilometers, followed by about 5,165 kilometers being exceeded by Pakistan to China, and they're further claiming another 90,000 square kilometers of Arunachal Pradesh. So China has been claiming whatever it be so. And therefore, to say that this is our claim line, the entire Aksai chain is ours. There's no denying the fact. But the fact is, right now, it is the LAC that matters. And the line of actual control, what we've been saying along, what you rightly said, it comes along from Karakoram and goes up to Debchok along that way. And that is where the perception problems are there. And that is why the various agreements are there in place to ensure that the translations do not result in firefights. It does not result in a fist fight. That is it.
General Kulkarni, since you have spoken about the agreements, one of the three key principles which India stresses both sides should strictly respect the LAC. All pacts must be fully abided with, and neither side should attempt to alter the status unilaterally. So when we talk about all pacts to be fully abided with, I am sure the Chinese were in violation of all the pacts which we have signed since 1993, including the BDCA which was in 2013, and the previous ones which talked about how the border management will be done, including the Border Management Protocol of 2005. So these pacts have to be sacrosanct. How do you see those?
The Chinese perception of the LAC and our perception of the LAC seems to differ, and therefore you find that much that we must agree, like what the Raksha Mantri says, we must strictly observe and respect the LAC. If we do not respect the LAC, then the translations will take place, and in which again, and once the translations take place, then that means we have violated the agreement. We have also violated the status quo which is required to be maintained. And if the status quo has been altered and the agreements have gone to the wind, like in the till what we have done till yesterday, the agreements had gone to the wind. Despite all the agreements that had been signed between India and China, what did they do? They violated the agreements. Even when we talk about Finger 8, Finger 4, I do hear a lot of people talking about if nobody came in, why are we saying they're going back? It is incorrect. It is all these kind of statements that are being made by people who probably are not aware of the ground reality. If you are aware of the ground reality, then nobody would make such a statement to say that if they have not come, why are we saying they have gone back? It is like we were allowed and we were patrolling up to Finger 8. That is our perception of the LAC. They were also coming up to Finger 4. That is their perception of the LAC. And therefore, now what has happened, as per the new agreement, we are gone to Dhansing Post, which is our post. They have gone east of the Finger 8. And therefore, between Finger 4 and Finger 8, there will be no patrolling till such time of peace and tranquility or agreements come into that effect to ensure that peace and no friction takes place. So these are all agreements. Supposing after this agreement, any one of us were to violate it, that is what is wrong. That is why the Raksha Mantri is saying that we must respect the LAC and the status quo must not be altered.
General Kulkarni, the military, of course, we have spoken very eloquently. Mr. Rajnath Singh and the Foreign Affairs Minister of Affairs Jaishankar were in Moscow in October. There were face-to-face meetings with the Chinese counterparts out there in Moscow over these very issues. There was talk about de-escalation. Sir, I'm sure there's a lack of trust, especially at the ground level between the two armies. How do you see that trust being built up if this goes through? Because I'm saying with a big if this goes through, as you said, the caution is there still. How do you see the trust being built up again?
That is exactly what was worrying everybody. Because there is total lack of trust. Because the Chinese have done what they were not supposed to do. But they did it. They have actually stabbed us in the back what they did. We have mobilized in such a manner and quick that they did not probably expect that India would react in a manner that they have reacted, resulting in what has happened now, the disengagement by the Chinese, because they thought there was that shoe more than they could bite. Now, as a result of which, all these things have taken place. Because of this trust deficiency that exists, thank God that at least in parts of the disengagement, now we find the armor columns are moving back, we'll find the people will start moving back, we'll find the infrastructure has been done away with, all the areas of dispute. This is primarily to ensure that, at least as I see, we have all along ensured and abided by the agreements that have been signed between the two countries. It was China which had violated. Now it is the responsibility of Chinese to ensure that they sort of come up in a manner that they, at least their actions should show that we can trust them. Because trust we must, but verify we must. trust but verify. And that is what I would say for the Chinese.
General Kulkarni, all of us who cover these strategic affairs know that the terrain on the Chinese side is very simple. It's a flat Tibetan plateau, they can deploy very quickly. On our side, the terrain is not so friendly to us, and we will need to cross at least 2-3 high mountain passes just to get the equipment back there at the locations. How do you see this scenario building up if China comes back again? Will it surprise us? How do you see that threat being tackled by the Indian Army?
See, firstly, mountains favor the defender. And therefore, the Indians are on a very, very dominating position wherever they are. And certain places, like when we talk of Penjangso, it's almost an infantry battle that would take place at Penjangso. When we talk about the Chushul area, the Sangur Gap, again, it is infantry and mechanized. But at Depsang, it's primarily the mechanized, which is going to be in a large measure. So with the kind of technology that we have and the kind of equipment that we have today, it is not going to be easy. The Chinese are aware of it, that they cannot, it is not 62 number one. Secondly, we have far more capacity building have risen so much, and the way the Indian troops have actually shown themselves with the kind of determination and the spirit and be able to confront the Chinese itself has put the Chinese in the back foot. But yes, we have to be careful, we have to be vigilant, we cannot take China for granted, and we must not be lulled into complacency whatsoever.
Sir, how do you see the things going forward? Because as the Raksha Mantri's statement is very categorical that after the first round is done, the first phase is done, then we will have to go to the second rounds. Those will include Gogra Hot Springs and Depsang, of course. How do you see this going forward? What could be the precautions India could take?
First and foremost, most of it, even if we give ourselves 7 days, I think within about 7 days, everything will be known, because what the Raksha Mantri said, that as soon as the actions are over, within 48 hours, the next phase would take place. So the Nyangso phase, which we should not give more than 3 or 4 days for it to happen, but give it 7 days also, even if it is to happen, because after every step, verification, again they would take a step, again verification, presuming it would be 7 days, and at least in the next 10 days, positively, we would know how the phase 2 goes. Because if the Chinese were not to walk the talk, and they've only said this, and it's a smoke screen created by China for their good, because they have heavily mobilized. There are 4 mechanized infantry divisions, the 6 motorized infantry divisions. All of them are already there in their locations, and they can quickly mobilize. It is not that they cannot do it. They know where they are. We also know where exactly they are. And amassed troops to a large extent with all the artillery and missiles and all these tanks and mechanized columns are all good to go back there in the concentration area. But it is for Chinese now to show their intent, they actually want peace and tranquility. They want good relations with India. The onus is entirely Chinese, and most of it would be seen in the next about 10 days.
General Kulkarni, how far do you think that India and China, they have avoided this situation? We were in a very serious situation in 2022 because bullets were fired, people were injured, there were physical clashes, and there were so many things happening which had not happened since probably 1967. That is almost 53 years ago. So in these 53 years, the trust, of course, has been broken, the agreements have been breached. Do you see that these two countries, if they have to progress ahead, should demarcate a kind of LAC on the ground? If I remember correctly, the demarcation of the LAC has been discussed multiple times, including at the special representative talks. How do you see this happening? Can there be demarcation of the LAC?
We have had numerous talks. I would say how many kind of meetings that have taken place for the working mechanism for consultation and coordination, military commander talks, so many talks that have taken place whatsoever. We have not once exchanged the maps. Can you imagine that we have not once exchanged? The Chinese are not willing to give the map because their perception line changes, their claim lines change. So it's very difficult. The Chinese of 14 countries that they have land borders with, they have not sorted out with 2 countries, India and Bhutan. That means whatever be, if the Chinese can't be trusted, the Chinese will continue to apply as much pressure as they can. The Chinese would want to nibble slowly and steadily whatever areas that they seem to feel. So it is very important for us to be able to deal with China from a position of strength. And that strength has to come from military, that strength has to come economically, and that strength will give strength to diplomacy. So it is very essential to deal with China. We have to deal with from a position of strength. There is no question. We should not and we will not buckle under any kind of pressure that the Chinese would want to apply. Now, the only thing that I see, Ajay, over here is the Chinese are not going to get into a kinetic war or a kind of a confrontationist war with India, but they would now use Pakistan, which happens to be their proxy and rentier state of China, for using all kinds of non-kinetic and kinetic energy you find will be done from the Pakistanis. The Pakistanis will be confronting and the Chinese will be only applying pressure. So this we have to be prepared for.
The last few hours have been very crucial in India-China relations. We have started a disengagement process at the Pangong Tso Lake, and the Raksha Mantri, Mr. Rajnath Singh, has informed the Parliament that this will happen in phases. I hope it is going now good. General Kulkarni, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on India-China disengagement in eastern Ladakh. The participants were Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, defense expert, and Ajay Banerjee, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.